Good afternoon and welcome to yet another edition of the EQ Lunch and Learn, where we provide the learning as you have your lunch. Grateful to those who've joined us, really looking forward to the conversation we are going to have today. My name is Mucha Mlingo. I am the lead change maker at PTS Africa, the Emotional Intelligence Company. I am an emotional intelligence practitioner and coach. And for those who know me, I am an emotional intelligence fanatic. And that's because I believe that this skill is a critical skill for your success at work. The EQ Lunch and Learn is a series that was designed to support you as an individual to gain insight on how you can use the skill of emotional intelligence to successfully navigate the challenges and the changes that you face in the workplace. We have a monthly chat, and the idea is to support you to gain practical insights around emotional intelligence and learn how it can be more important than IQ, help you to gain an understanding of how you can use your emotions as a strategic resource to navigate through the challenges and changes you face at work, and to provide tools to help you build emotional muscle necessary to thrive in these uncertain and unpredictable times. So, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, and we are going to have a great conversation. A strong network is like money in the bank. Your network can help you to build visibility, to connect with influencers, and open up doors for new opportunities. Building and nurturing a network is one of the most powerful things you can do to support your career advancement. And yet, often, our networking efforts are just social, very haphazard, and as a result, ineffective. You make friends and connections. However, these people are not always in a position to help you further your career. And most importantly, may not be willing to speak for you, to advocate on your behalf. Today, with my awesome panel, we are exploring how to network proactively, how to build a diverse network, and what emotional intelligence has to do with building social capital. As always, I have three amazing guests who are here with me, who are going to help me have this conversation. I couldn't possibly do it on my own. I have with me today Natalia. Natalia is the MD of Just Work and an international headhunter and career coach with a total of 15 years experience, in which she has interviewed over 15,000 people and hired over 1,000 across 70 countries. Natalia is going to tell us a bit more about herself as the conversation is ongoing. Natalia, welcome to the session today.
Thank you so much, Asante Sana. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. In order, if you'd like to learn more about Natalia, you can connect with her on LinkedIn, and we're going to share her LinkedIn. Um, we're going to share her LinkedIn profile so you can connect with her if you'd like to know more as we continue today. I also have with me, sorry, let me share. Yes, I think we've shared Natalia's link. I also have with me today Michelle Kahonzi. Michelle is an optimist, energetic, and highly motivated product development manager with exceptional customer experience. Having worked with three different companies, her skills in business development, which majorly involved working with customers, have greatly grown, making her a good customer success go to person. Michelle has consistently achieved results in business development and solution selling while exceeding her sales quotas. In order to learn more about Michelle and connect with her, you can also connect with her on LinkedIn. Michelle, great to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Awesome. And last but not least, we have with us Stephen. Stephen Machua is a six-time award-winning project analyst who has worked in policy, planning, and enterprise. He is a man who is very brief because that is the bio he gave us. Stephen, you are very welcome to the conversation. It's great to have you here as well.
Thank you, Mucha, and great to be
Awesome.
here.
Great. So, as you can see, as always, we have a very power packed panel who are going to help me dive into and unpack this topic of social capital and why social capital is important for you as an individual and for the leaders who will be joining us, who are interacting with us, for you as an organization. So let's get started with defining what it is we are talking about. Natalia, since I brought you on first, I'll start with you. How do you define social capital?
It's such a broad phrase. Before I even had to look it up a little bit more on Wikipedia to really understand what exactly is social capital out there. And there are so many different theories, and some of them contradictory, and but they have some things in common. So I'm only going to come from the point of view of really careers. So when I think of your social capital, for me, it's almost like your personal branding. How do you make people feel? Your network, online, offline. How are you perceived by others? How much do you go out there and support others? How much of a resource are you out there to support people? So essentially, your social capital from a career point of view is how do others perceive you, perceive what you do, perceive you as your branding, what are your keywords, etc. So is a very, very interesting topic to be discussing actually in a career context, because you have the online, creating a digital footprint, creating your value add, all the knowledge that you have, putting it on a global digital footprint, as well as, you know, how are you perceived in your church? How are you perceived from your colleagues to your customers, your clients? All of that really make up your social capital from a career point of view, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you've jumped us right into the topic. Michelle, if I come to you next, how would you define, and you can, whether it's adding to what Natalia says or taking us in a different direction, whichever, we are open. When you think social capital, and we are talking to professionals, so we're talking about this in the setting of professionals at work. What is social capital to you?
So, social capital to me, I'll go into like a mindset view. As Natalia said, it's quite broad, yeah. And for me, social capital is that glue that holds us together, the influences that we have, and the influences that are upon us, and based on our values, based on the beliefs that we have had over years, and how that impacts us in the workplace and also in life. So looking at it from that concept, what are those invisible resources as what are our networks, what are the norms, what is the level of trust that we have around us, what's our reputation, what's our goodwill. To me, that is how I define social capital.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Stephen, last but not least, let me come to you to hear your thoughts on what social capital is.
For me, I look at social capital as the value that you get from the positive connections that you have with others, and I see it as something that is nurtured, something that is shared. It's not one way. It's not one way. There's an aspect of mutual benefit, and it's something that is based on trust. A long-term process of relationship building, and I think I think it also comes from a point of less transaction. Sort of like, if you really want social capital to work for you, perhaps you need to stop asking for too many favors, or being the only person asking, or being the only person who is on the receiving end of benefits from that particular relationship. So it has a lot of aspects, and it's hard to define it in a single sentence.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Stephen. I like the way that each of you have shared your perceptions, and whereas there may be a thread running through what you've said, you've also added elements that are quite different. So thank you very much for sharing. Welcome to those who are with us online. I can see we have a number joining us either on our YouTube page or on LinkedIn or on Facebook. You're all very welcome. And we'd like this to be an interactive session. So do say hello in the comments in the chat so that we can acknowledge you. We have with us Lioness Forever TV, who's already jumped ahead to asking questions. So thank you very much for sharing that insight. We will come a little later to the questions that we will answer. But don't wait until then. Feel free to share your questions in the comments, and when the time comes, I will refer to them. So welcome to whoever is behind that moniker, Lioness Forever TV. Really looking forward to engaging with you. So do say hi to us so we know you're here. I know we always have our regular attendees. If you're new, just say hi so we get to know you. Hi, Celestine. Hi, we have Lifestyle with Jane. So I think that's Jane. Pius, you're welcome too. Susan, always good to have you here. So thank you very much for joining us today. Remember, feel free to share your questions. We will come to them a little later in the session. So let's continue our conversation. We're talking about social capital, and we're talking about why it's important for you as a professional to develop this social capital. Natalia, let me stay, with you again as a first in this round, because I want to ask you a question around how social capital, or why social capital is important for someone looking to grow their career. So as a career coach, you have worked with a number of individuals build and grow their career. Why is social capital important for an individual who's looking to grow their career? And you can talk about this both from the perspective of any social capital internally within the organization, externally, or even online.
Indeed, I think over the last, or coming up to 5 years, I think I have done at least one-to-one coaching with over 2,000 people. Is a lot. So a lot of different career paths. What I say to individuals is that careers are lives. It's not just about a singular job, especially those who are mid-level in their career to a bit more senior. What I teach them is really understanding what is it that your skills do. You see, if you were a shampoo bottle, when we present ourselves, we read the ingredients. This is my degree, this is number of years, etc. Whereas when you are positioning yourself, it's so important to package yourself in explaining what is it that your skills actually do. But when it comes really to managing your career, which is not just getting a job, but is a step-by-step process that goes on for a long period, the first thing that I ask people to do is to understand what is the perception that they have, both in their personal life and both in their work environment. So there is so many explanation when it comes to personal branding. It's such a big word thrown around everywhere else. But for me, personal branding in essence means what others think of you. Your brand belongs to you. You decide how you act, how you speak, how you dress, but you cannot control what others think. Therefore, you have to understand where you have some of the control. And in order to manage your personal brand, I always take 3 very critical steps. The first one, you have to build some form of self-awareness. Self-awareness in terms of when you are in meetings, how much are you vocal? Are you speaking out? If you are in groups, how visible are you? Just become self-aware. How do you speak at home to your children? How do you speak to your sort of your boys versus your girls? Just become aware. How do you feel? The first thing is to build that sense of self-awareness in how is it that you are behaving, because we as human beings go on to autopilot and constantly think. The second thing is when it comes to managing your brand is authenticity, is being real. And authenticity is something that we cannot fake. It's something that we as humans understand innately. A 10-year-old will know if you're being authentic or not. And the way to be authentic is to always speak through your story, my experience, what I feel, how I always speak through your story. And then the third part, which is what Stephen said earlier, is you have to add value. And that's what social capital is about. You are a resource. And when you are adding value, this could be you are giving that person more time, you are giving that person more knowledge, support, you giving in your family perhaps more money. So it's about creating that win-win scenario. So those that are out there constantly asking, you have to ask in a way that you are giving. So personal branding is something that has no beginning or end. Whether you are aware of it or not, it's still happening. Therefore, the first thing really is to understand, how do I make others feel? So this is what I would say, really understanding your brand. How do others relate to you? How do you make them feel? How do you interact and build upon that? That's where your strength will come from.
Wow. Natalia, before I jump to Michelle, just I love the way you've broken it down into the three. And what I'm hearing you say is the fact that this piece of social capital is critical and actually supports the advancement of this career. And I like the way you talk about career as opposed to just thinking about a job or getting the next job. So yeah, the idea here is then that this becomes critical in your advancement. So thank you very much for sharing that, Natalia.
Just to add one thing,
Yes,
having
please.
hired for Oracle 12 years and so many other companies, I can't explain how many times when a hiring manager comes to me and says, I want to hire somebody, but I already have someone in my mind. The amount of managers, and this is your personal branding. You may not even be aware, but the way you are interacting, the way you are speaking is creating that impression in the mind of others. And that's how you get promoted. Managers already have an impression of you, whether you are conscious of it or not. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Let me just quickly give a shout out to those who are online. Great to have you here. Kuda, it's nice to have you online. Catherine, thank you very much for joining us. Victoria, it's good to see you again. Joel, thank you very much for joining us today. It's great to have all the people who are here. Hema, great to have you online. Thank you very much for sharing. And there's comments here. Jane says she likes the idea of authenticity, always speaking through your story. What I love about the idea of authenticity is no one can challenge it, right? Because it's your story. So I may not agree with your story, but I can't challenge you because it is your story. And I think for me, that has been one of the powerful ways to grow brands on social media, because I may not know everything there is to know about the topic, but I know about my experience in the topic. And if I'm authentic to my story, that is powerful. So thank you very much, Natalia, for sharing. Michelle, let me come to you. We've talked about how important this is for an individual in growing their career. How about from a leadership perspective? How can leaders foster social capital in organizations? And why would they do so? Why would it be important?
Thank you. I love the conversation all around authenticity, because even in leadership, we need to come, you come out as an authentic leader. An authentic leader meaning you're practicing the same values, the behavior that you expect from your team. You're leading by example. And from the onset as a leader, you need to first clarify the company values and the company culture. There needs to be a conscious culture, because what we are doing as we're building social capital, you need to have a level of trust, and you need to create and maintain a high level of trust within your organization. Because once you do that, one of the things that happen is a free flow of information within the organization. Why it's important is, there's innovation. We cannot have innovation if there's no free flow of information. And as a leader, you also need to provide a time and a space to create connections. Not just connections, but healthy connections within the team. You need to have high quality connections, which again speaks to the level of trust that you have, and also onto the authenticity. And then also building that collaboration and growth within the organization that is needed. You also need, as a leader, to establish recognition and reward systems, because it's quite important to highlight within the team and bring that connection within the team. So, there are different ways you can do that in terms of team building activities. And I'd like also to mention there is the external social capital, which is individual relationships outside of the office, but there's also the internal social capital, which is what are the connections that are happening within the organization. So as a leader, you need to ensure that you're being able to manage both and bringing the most authentic out. You're able to support the team, you're able to reinforce that collaboration, even when it comes to change management. I like when, what we're all going through, I mean, is uncertainty. And there's a lot of change that comes about that. How are leaders managing that change? We're working from home, now it's more virtual as well as hybrid or, back to the office and all that. As a leader, how do you create those opportunities? What is the cadence in terms of your employees, your subordinates, and yourself in terms of keeping in touch? Aside from just work, I think one of the things that the pandemic showed us is we need to look at people as individuals as well as employees in the organization. So we need to be able to address each and every aspect of their lives. So there needs to be that collaboration, that connection. And why is it important? Just as I said, if you're seeing this person as a friend, as someone that you are connecting with, it boosts the staff morale. It also boosts the staff retention within the organization. The teams get to stay. If you're able to measure the level of trust and collaboration within your organization, you can see what are the gaps that are there and be able to plug them in and foster the innovation, new ideas that can come out from the team, new ways of working that can come from the team, because there's that openness and cooperation, and also productivity and efficiency will go up. And I can't stress, from a mindset angle, being sponsoring or catering for the happiness and well-being of the employees. So in essence, you'll find, without social capital, it means there are no connections, there's no communication, there's no sharing of ideas. But with social capital, it means each of us and everyone knows their part and plays their part to their best. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. There's a couple of things you said that, really struck me. One of them is around the issue of trust. And, based on research that we've conducted as part of the 6 Seconds global community, trust is one of the biggest contributors to performance in organizations. And so when we're able as leaders to build that social capital, it heightens the level of trust, which means people are willing to try, they're willing to give of their best, they give of their discretionary effort, and we have less lower levels of presenteeism, people who are just there to mark a register, but they are not fully engaged. So I think that's crucial. And then another thing you talked about is this idea of organizational vitality, right? That people are, going to feel better as a result of this positive social capital, because it has an impact on the way we do relationships. And I'm sure for those who are listening, you can see where I'm going here, as today we're talking about social capital and we're linking it to emotional intelligence. Stephen, let me allow you to weigh in the conversation before I go back to our comments and say hi to a few more people. What does organizational culture have to do with social capital? So this is following on from what Michelle talked about as far as leaders and the importance of leaders building social capital in organizations.
I think we've grown in a setup where power distance plays a huge role. And by power distance, I mean how subordinates react to those in authorities. We've had that kind of system where we don't promote open communication within organizations, or someone will always be like, I don't want to knock at my boss at the door to my boss, or I don't want to speak to my supervisor today. Maybe they might add me more work, or they might not accept my idea today. So that kind of closed that kind of gap in communication or interaction sort of acts as an impediment to building of social capital, because then you'll never understand what the other person wants. And organizations have to find a way of breaking down that structure and coming to the level of subordinates and encouraging them to speak up, to speak out. Number two, I think there's that aspect of mind your own business. You're hired in an organization, or you've been hired for some job somewhere. You're like, mind your own business. You're coming here to fix the internet. That's all that you're set out for. So you don't get to the point of uh, sharing more of what you are beyond the being the internet guy, right? And we see that a lot in organizations where if I don't have anything to say to you, I'll probably just pass by, and we might spend the next 5 years in the same organization, yet I barely know anything about you, right? And organizations try to do this by trying to do team building sessions, but how effective that gets, I guess it's usually like one of those one-off things in a year. So if you're only doing team building once in a year, and the rest of the time you're just passing around the office and not speaking to others, then I usually find it without not having so much impact. Then I think the other thing around my people accelerating that aspect of minding your own business is probably driven by trust deficits. We probably don't. You've ever had that joke of you don't tell your colleagues your next move, or your whatever idea you have, right? So we have a lot of trust deficits, and I view it as a projection of our inner chaos as individuals. We are fighting or battling so much within us, to the point that we project that to how we interact with the people, and that culture is actually becoming more real and real every other day. I think people are more individualistic, more than ever, or more than we've ever thought about. And you can actually see it even with how people live. You're probably staying in an apartment, and you don't care who is the person next door, yet you share a veranda, you share some of the resources around. You only get to reach out to them when it's a bit chaotic on your side, and you have to, sorry, when it's a bit chaotic on your side, and you're probably asking for help. So you're only reaching out when it's convenient, or when you don't have any other way out. And that still goes to the point where society is not creating enough time for relationship building. And I tend to think that, and this even speaks to organizations, I tend to think that a lot of, sorry, having a phone call coming through. So we tend to look at people from a transactional point of view, and these things are short-lived. It's a short-term relationship. So those are the three kind of aspects that I would view culture and social capital from.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I think you've really shared some key insights. I saw Michelle and Natalia nodding their heads as you were sharing, and I can see a few comments that have been shared here. Catherine's echoing your thoughts. I'm here to work, not make friends kind of mentality. Sarah says the same, that we don't really connect at work, either because it's not the right kind of environment, or we're not necessarily given the option to do so. So thank you very much. A shout out again to those who've joined us since the last time I said hi. I can't remember where I left off. I think I mentioned Leah. Thank you so much for being here. Celestine, great to have you here again. Arthur, thank you for joining us. Lorna, Carol, thank you very much for joining us as well. Mercy, you're very welcome. Mercy, we are streaming this on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to go back to the YouTube channel and listen to it again. So that's in response to the question about the recording. Lillian, thank you for joining us. Lillian is commenting and talking about trust leads to heart count as opposed to head count, which is indeed an ingredient to social capital. Thank you so much, Tessie. Great to have you here. as always, thank you to everyone who is here. Please remember, add your questions, your comments, your reflections. We will continue to touch base on your thoughts as we go ahead. Stephen, I want to stay with you. We're talking about social capital, and we've talked about why it's important. Natalia shared why it's important for you as an individual. Michelle talked about why it's important for leaders to cultivate social capital within teams. And you talked about how culture influences social capital. So let's get practical. For someone who is thinking, okay, I like the sound of this social capital, I recognize it's important. How can an individual build up this social capital?
I think based on the setup that we are in as a society, one of the first things to think around building social capital is networking. And by networking, I mean, being curious about the person next to you and getting to the point of understanding who they are, or perhaps to the point of you opening up and finding whether there's a level of convergence. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, but in the process, maybe you'll find some what do you call it? Some link, or some level of connection in a way. So number one is networking, and I view it as a dating scenario. You can't just meet someone today, give them your business card, and assume that that's the end. It's a continuous process. Building social capital requires as much work as someone puts into dating, and I earlier on I mentioned about people getting tired of favors or being asked for favors. And I guess that's where a lot of people get it wrong, because I'll only reach to Mucha when I need a recommendation letter, or when I need Mucha to do a few things for me, or when I need Natalie to review my CV, right? But all along, I've not even checked on whether Natalie is doing well, whether she's been feeling okay in the past maybe couple of years, And we have so many of such people. So networking and investing time in that connection that you've made, to nurture that kind of relationship. And networking can happen in many scenarios. There are events every now and then. I know someone who invited me here, Tessie, is a big fan of networking events, and she always has some of these things on her fingertips. So such networking events act as a pretty good platform as a starting point. Social capital can also be built around workplaces, the relationship you nurture with your colleagues and people within your industry, not just in your organization, but within your industry. And that cross-cuts ranks, because a lot more people think that social capital is a peer-to-peer thing. You only reach people tend, and I see it as a challenge amongst young people who only think that they only need to build a relationship between themselves, forgetting that they can actually nurture healthy relationship with their bosses or even their subordinates. And I think the other thing is trying as much as possible to be proactive in saying who someone is, right? It's almost like packaging yourself to the point that if I were to think of an EQ coach, I actually don't know any other EQ coach in Kenya apart from Mucha. She's found a way of packaging herself in a way that people can actually associate you with EQ, and that you can easily do that on social media, on your LinkedIn profile, on your Instagram, on your Facebook. So social media is a powerful tool for building social capital, and I'm saying this because I've really benefited a lot from my social capital. You know, the what social media provides. I remember sometimes in 2016, a Facebook friend who had not met for, I'd never met him physically, but we had interacted, we had engaged, we had assisted each other in some development work. And he found it fit to invite me for a conference in India. And that conference in India led to another conference in South Africa. And progressively, I ended up getting some scholarship from the same circles. So one event led to another, and this is someone who we had only known each other from the social media. So it's a powerful tool. It's a powerful space to build your social capital. But again, as I said, you don't just inbox someone when you need something. You have to nurture that relationship. It has to be mutual, and both parties have to be willing to put in the work. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing, Stephen. There's a couple of things that you said that I want to pull in. First, Natalia, you talked about the power of social media, right? And Natalia, I know this is an area that you have utilized extensively and supported others to utilize extensively. So let's talk about, the kind of online, and I've attended forums, Natalia, where you've talked about the fact that gone are the days where your CV is this document you share on email, and really your how you appear online is critical to your development, to your growth. So Natalia, if I can just pull you in to share your thoughts on building social capital and leveraging on the power of online, as Stephen says, as a result of what was happening online, opportunities opened up. So maybe you could talk a little about that, Natalia.
Absolutely. Very good points, actually. So very interesting. Really enjoying this conversation, I have to say. It's really, really good. 100%. I think there is a clear distinction between offline and online branding. And really, it's a massive difference. And when it comes to social media, depending if you are a baby boomer, millennia, Gen Z, technology has come into different parts. So I always find it very interesting, the relationships that professional people who maybe have 10, 15, 20 or above years experience, they're like, I don't know, I find social media is just look at me, kind of attention grabbing or attention seeking. But for me, what I really, really ask people to do is that your CV, as you know, I'm not a big fan of this document. It lives offline. Basically, you might as well print it, put it by your bedside, and then wait for a headhunter like me to break into your house and find you. It's literally as simple as that. And the amount of times I get asked, "You're a headhunter. Can you headhunt me?" I'm like, yes, I can. All you need to do is just leave me a digital footprint. Keywords, hard skill keywords. When I search, I find you. And not just me, but hundreds of other people are coming to find you. So when it comes to LinkedIn, especially, and positioning, you see, as I said, if I go back to that hand cream bottle and the way we list our skills, I think it's important to understand that, first of all, LinkedIn is simply a platform. LinkedIn does not add all this information. We do. We create the company. We attach ourselves to the company. We decide whether we update our profile or we don't update. But I will tell you this, with 800 million profiles, 840 million, with over 15 million live jobs, literally recruiters spend hours and hours putting in keywords. So understand that when it comes to even your photograph, Your brand is the impression that you create in the mind of others. Do not think that out of all of the 800 million people on LinkedIn are your customers. Understand clearly who would find my knowledge of value. Some people use LinkedIn almost like a secretive, I want to see what's happening, etc. I don't see the point. It's in the name, LinkedIn. LinkedIn. If you don't have enough connections, you will not be found. Delete your profile, it has the same effect. So build your numbers. Build your numbers. Make your profile, your LinkedIn profile is like your personal brand. It belongs to you because it's your LinkedIn, but it's created for me, the reader. So it has to represent you and speak what you do. You find that there is so much confusion on how do I position myself on these profiles. A little bit like the CV. Do I have a gap? Do I add this? There's so much. Understand that your LinkedIn profile is not a confession document, neither is your LinkedIn. I find people tell me so much information, even on your CV. Like, I, I honestly, I have that's a whole hour topic we can go into. But do not confuse your reader. If you've done a little bit of photography, or you've done some drama, or you are passionate about something, don't combine it. Don't put everything that you do. Give the reader a clear indication of what is it that you do, and please understand the importance of what I call visual language. If I simply say to you, I am a recruitment director, I cover all of Africa, I manage both technical and non-technical profiles, this information does not give me enough to understand, to visualize what you do. When you say, I am managing 46 countries with an operation of over 2,500 employees, I'm responsible for incrementing up to 30% of employment on a yearly basis. Quantified, qualified. Your LinkedIn profile belongs to you, but it's made for me, the reader. And if you want to get headhunted, connect. Build your network. Your network on LinkedIn is your capital. You will get pulled up into the right opportunities. You will get headhunted, not just by me, but every headhunter in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. You made me laugh when you talked about, the comments you've shared on CVs. And I've been in forums where you've talked about this. Guys, we have shared a link to Natalia's LinkedIn page. Do follow her, and you can even jump in on some of the programs that she runs around building out your LinkedIn profile, because I think, this is something that we may not realize, or we may not know exactly how to do. And it's such a crucial thing, making sure that the right message is the message out there. So we're sharing again. We shared earlier a link to Natalia's LinkedIn page. So follow her, and you can always DM her if you feel that you have a particular question you'd like to ask about making sure that your CV is not in your house waiting for Natalia to break in and find it, so that you can find your next great job. Thank you very much for sharing that. Michelle, I want to come to you now. And we're talking about building social capital, and we're looking at how we can be practical. At the end of the day, we only have so much time in the lunch and learn. The idea is to, share some nuggets as we talk. So, earlier, Michelle talked about why it's important for leaders to build social capital within their organizations. No, sorry, I am talking to Michelle. Michelle, I want to ask you about emotional intelligence. Yes, I'm jumping ahead to Natalia's question. Following on from the conversation we're having so far, right, around social capital, around the impact of culture on social capital, what is the relationship between emotional intelligence and building social capital? Because this is an EQ lunch and learn. So obviously we must bring in the piece about emotional intelligence. What is the link? Is it related in any way?
Yes, it is. So EQ is basically the ability we have to learn, to communicate, to listen, and manage the relationships that we have. So in essence, EQ is the ability that we have to build our social capital. So it's very important for us and for those who wish to network. Earlier on, Natalia had talked about self-awareness, part of EQ. And for self-awareness, it basically means knowing yourself, knowing your values, your strengths, your weaknesses, and the likes, and where you need to go, and who are the people that can be able to guide you and get there. And so for you to build strong connections with others, you need to be strongly connected with yourself. You need to know who you are. You need to know your personality. And you'll find that some people who have such a knack in interacting with others, for those ones, we say they have high EQ, but there are those ones who struggle a bit. And of course, with EQ, it can be developed. And so it's understanding what is the networking style that I need that will set me apart, that I am comfortable with to be able to reach out to people. Stephen had also talked about, not just being seen, that you're going in for favors. Yeah. So it's understanding EQ means having that, looking in and seeing this other person and seeing where they are at. Is it the right time to give my business card, for instance? Is it the right time to have this conversation of a favor? Or what are the things that I can do? What is the value that I can bring to this person without expecting anything from them, so that from there I can be able to build? And here we're not talking about manipulation, because of course there's that angle with social capital where you're manipulating to get where you want to go. But in this instance, you're looking at how can I make a positive interaction or have a positive outcome from this relationship that you have. So knowing yourself also means, as you have identified your networking style, being very conscious, having a practice around that, seeing, once a week, who am I reaching out to? What is the goal that I have for myself? How many people am I reaching out to this week? In what way am I having lunch? Is it a business meeting, such and such? And also for leaders, who am I connecting with in my team? So it's just identifying that, because you need to have a networking style that's deliberate, that's habitual. And as you develop, you'll find that, even your EQ is developing in networking. You can read books, you can read articles, you can tune into EQ Lunch and Learn, and, just hear some of the things that you can be able to do. So that's one. The other aspect that we need to look at is emotions are contagious. And this is because of mirror neurons. You'll find, we say when someone yawns, you also end up yawning. That is because of mirror neurons. So you'll find when someone is excited, if we came here and we were, damp and sad, it would ruin the mood. But all of us are in a happy mood. So even in our interactions, we need to also bring in that positive energy to others and influence others positively, so that we leave a good taste in their mouth, so to speak. And also being able to identify, because they're mirror neurons, we are influencing others, but others also influence us. So we need to understand, when you're getting into, from an EQ perspective, when you're getting into a session, when you meet someone who is sad, you will also leave with a feeling of sadness. So it's identify what are the spaces that are honoring you, spaces that are growing you, spaces that you'd like to be in. From an organization standpoint, what are the spaces that you need to stay away from? Yeah, we talk about office politics, we talk about, corridor talk, or different conversations. Is that the space that you want to be in? And are those the values that you want to have? Even the mentality and the attitude of saying, these are my colleagues, that I'm not here to make friends kind of mentality. That's something that you need to also identify and see, is this a space, or is this what I'm bringing here? Yeah, into the organization. So always being able to exude positive energy in the people that you meet, knowing yourself, and also being able to develop rapport, being on the same page with whoever you're meeting for the first time, and being able to engage. So definitely EQ is very important when we're talking about building our social capital.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, Michelle. I love all the different things you talked about. And, one of the things I say regularly on this event, in this forum, is that emotional intelligence is not just another skill that you need to add to the plate. emotional intelligence is the plate upon which all these other skills lie. And so your ability to network, to build relationships, because really social capital and networking is about relationship building. Your ability to do that relies on your ability to develop emotional intelligence. And what excites me about emotional intelligence is it is a skill. So anyone can develop greater emotional intelligence. Before I come to some of the questions that are already in the comment section, and if you do have a question, please do share it. We're coming to questions shortly. And if you have a question for a specific individual, you can, point to them directly in your question, or if it's just a general question, you can just share it in the comments wherever you are tuned in, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, and we will get to your questions. Before I do that, Natalia, we've been talking about why it's important to build social capital, and Michelle specifically talked around why it's important for leaders to build social capital within organizations. And we talked about how it has such positive impact, and Michelle listed a number of benefits. So how exactly can this be done? How can leaders positively enhance social capital for their teams?
What a wonderful question. I have to say, although I don't have any statistics, but having spoken to literally thousands of people, I can tell you that the number one reason why people quit is because of their immediate boss or the management. Almost 95% of why people leave their jobs, there is almost like an expectation that if you've been in like a senior role, junior role, or mid-level, you are now going to go into management. I think businesses need to understand that anybody who is a people manager or a leader is not an automatic step that goes into it. There isn't enough, you could never give enough training in self-awareness, every aspect of that EQ, emotional intelligence, to anybody that is managing or leading anybody that is moving forward. But really, for me, I find Michelle made some absolutely fantastic points there. For me, I find that the way we communicate and the way we interact, as Stephen said, not just when I need Mucho for a reference but what I find that is very big is, or the differentiation that we need to make is what we call verbal and non-verbal communication. A lot of is hidden under EQ between verbal and non-verbal. When we are just speaking and speaking alone, it actually counts only for 10% of our communication. One of the big pillars that I am building within my career development training program is understanding what is body language, your intonation, where your eyes are looking. And the more I dig under this subject, the more I realize it's not just a simple, oh, if you are across your arm, you are now barrier. It's not. It means so many different things in so many different contexts. So for me, body language or non-verbal communication, it's so huge that we actually communicate without even knowing it. So where your hand is when you are, if something is hidden, why do we trust you? Why do we not trust you? And a lot of us come into the work environment, including leaders, and the way we behave may not come across or be sort of perceived by others the way you want to. So we have employees who are coming in with the best intention, managers who want to manage their teams with the best intention, but they don't have that self-awareness in terms of how that there is both internal dialogue and there is external dialogue. Like, how did I make that person feel versus what did I do to make that person feel like that? So you need to have a huge amount of emotional intelligence, EQ, for you to be a leader. But also it depends. Not all leaders need to. You may need leaders who are with a kurbash. You may need leaders who are a lot more nurturing. It really depends on also the business, the industry, the culture. Sometimes the culture comes within the industry. And also I would say that what we need to be aware when we are hiring also is that we have several generations from
Mm,
baby boomers. We all are motivated, engaged, communicated to, and inspired by leaders very differently. So, a leader that has a certain beliefs and then they are managing people that don't necessarily share those beliefs, this is where you get a lot. So, if you are a leader, assume that you are not the perfect leader. Most managers say, I know what I'm doing. So be open to learn. Actually, use your employees to communicate back to you. What is it that you need to improve on? Do allow an open door policy. Trust me, you will learn from it. Sometimes you get very fearful managers. Sometimes when I'm hiring for managers, and I find a fantastic candidate, that manager is terrified. They don't know if they're going to control that person, how they are going to do it. So it's a very, very big issue. But I would say any business should give as much training and support in developing their communication skills, rapport building, relationship maintenance. Give them as much training as you can. Because even if I'm one manager with 10 employees, I cannot use the same approach to each employee. An extrovert
mm,
that is now stuck in COVID needs far more support than someone who likes the quiet space. So, as a
mm.
leader, you need to understand the needs of your employees and lead them in that direction.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing, Natalia. I like, how you summed it up and concluded this idea that leaders need to know their people. I think this is crucial. A key element of leadership is situational leadership, where you have a good understanding of a person and you're able to meet their specific needs as opposed to having a one size fits all approach. And for me, emotional intelligence is at the heart of getting to know people at that deeper level rather than the superficial way that we often know people. Awesome. We are having a fabulous conversation, and from your comments in the that are coming through, I can see that we are enjoying the conversation. Wycliffe, I'm not sure if I'd said hi to you earlier, and thank you to all the people who keep sharing. We have a number of questions that I'd like our panel to come to. Our panel have highlighted the questions and shared them in our private chat, so please just review them quickly before I come to those questions. Before I come to the questions, we're talking about the power of emotional intelligence. So allow me to share some of the work that we are doing in the space of emotional intelligence. We would like to support you to become an emotional intelligence change maker and transform your organization. If you have a people development role, either as a trainer or an HR manager, we have a program that we would like to share with you. Leading a business, leading a team has never been easy. But today, a unique convergence of challenges is making emotional intelligence imperative for those in leadership, for those who are leading teams, and more especially those who are tasked with the well being of the organization, sitting in the HR function. In the current business context, companies are struggling with rapid change, with finding competitive advantage in a globalized economy, and in finding, keeping, and motivating talent in a changing workforce. Emotional intelligence is emerging as a critical factor for sustaining high performance in this VUCA environment. Join PTS Africa, the emotional intelligence company, on a journey to embed emotional intelligence in your organization. In collaboration with 6 Seconds, the world's largest emotional intelligence network, we would like to offer you an emotional intelligence certification program for leaders and HR professionals. This is a program designed for anyone serious about spreading emotional intelligence, starting with themselves and then trickling it down within their organizations. What we found is that individuals and leaders frequently attend for their own growth. However, they recognize or they realize that beyond this, they can then spread that to others. This certification process is really looking for individuals who want to embed emotional intelligence in their organizations. So, we would like to share more with you about this certification. And if this is something you are interested in, I'm going to share a link in the comments, and you can reach out to us or just fill out the form, and we will reach out to you and share more about this certification. The certification will be running through September and October. It is quite a detailed and involved process, and we would like to support you through it. Individuals who participate or who join us come away with in-depth training on the neuroscience of learning and learning design that will enhance your effectiveness in all your training and coaching and supporting your team. You will also get practical emotional intelligence tools that you can use immediately for organizational transformation and the adoption of emotional intelligence within your teams. You will become part of this global network called 6 Seconds. You will be supported by expert 6 Seconds faculty and involved in a brain-based, emotionally engaging learning methodology as you learn how to leverage the power of emotional intelligence for yourself and for your team. You will receive the 6 Seconds Emotional Intelligence Certificate, 6 Seconds Emotional Intelligence Practitioner status and designation. You will be able to utilize the 6 Seconds Unlocking EQ assessment to deploy within your team, and you will take home dozens of proven EQ exercises. We give you an HR toolkit that you will be able to utilize in your team. So if that is something that is of interest to you, please do fill out the form and we will be in touch and share more information. Let's get back to the conversation that we are having. We're talking about developing social capital and why that is important. We have a number of questions that are in the chat. There's a question, social capital versus networking, because we've talked a little about social capital, we've talked a little about networking. Is it the same thing? So that's one of the questions we have that have come through. I'm throwing this to my panel. And then also social capital versus popularity, and social capital and personality. So those are the three I'd like to start with. Social capital versus networking, is it the same thing? Can we also talk about social capital and popularity? And then Josephat is asking about the relationship between social capital and personality. Michelle, I want to come to you first on that last point, because you touched on it a little when you were talking about emotional intelligence and how it influences social capital. So is there a relationship between social capital and personality? One of the things you said was, when you're networking, it's critical to identify what works for you as an individual. All right. And I think that's related to personality. So maybe we can start there. You could share your insights on that. And if you want to touch on the other questions as well, and then we'll invite Natalia and Stephen to share their reflections as well.
Thank you. Yes, so social capital versus personality. Yeah, there's a relation and it's quite important. We've been talking about self-awareness. We're talking about knowing yourself. We're talking about EQ today. Yeah, and you need to understand your personality. There are various personality tests you can do. You can be an extrovert. You can be an introvert. For instance, extroverts would have a larger network, but of thinly spaced relationships. An introvert would have closer social with thick relationship, they're closely knit. So it really matters to identify who you are and who's in your network, because as an introvert, you would start with your already closely knit network to be able to branch out depending on what works for you. With an introvert, for instance, just going to what Natalia spoke about in terms of social media. An introvert loves, in their own personal space in their house. So if you're at home, you can use social media as a way to put yourself out there, to create those connections, to join, to log on to sessions like this. But if you're an extrovert, it's where now, as Stephen has said about Tessie, she goes out and she does the EQ networking and she finds all these networking events. So there is that relation. It's just identify which are you and what works best for you. Is it going out and meeting people in person and having that face-to-face interaction, or do you want to sit from the comfort of your home, being able to network online? The good thing of that is we have so many spaces on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You'll have all those arenas you can go in and speak freely from the comfort of your home. So there is a relation to that. And the good thing is it's not a one size fits all. It's up to you what basically works for you, what you'd like to be able to do. As an introvert, you can choose to also get out of your comfort zone and go into some networking opportunities if they're in line with where you want to go. Just to touch on the social capital versus networking, in my view, networking is an example of social capital, but social capital is quite broad. I mean, we've all defined it in different ways. Us being on this call is also part of a result as a result of social capital. Yeah. So with social capital, it's showing that it's not about it's about also the trust, the norms, the different the outcomes of having these social interactions and relationships, and networking is one of the ways that we get to do that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm looking at the time and it's amazing how time flies because there are so many questions. And I've just seen another one that I think is really fabulous. I like what you said, Michelle, and I just really wanted to emphasize this, that there's no good or bad personality, right? You didn't say it in those words per se, but I think that's what I took away. It's just knowing what your personality is, right? So it's knowing that this is my personality type and being intentional about networking. Earlier, one of the things you said was how, it needs to be something that you are intentional about. It needs to be something that the words you used were deliberate, habitual, and ultimately aligned to how you prefer to network. Now, yes, it's true. You can, as an introvert, decide that you're going to step outside your comfort zone. And equally for those of us who are extroverts, right? Because one of the things you said that's so true about extroverts is we have typically a large network, but those relationships aren't as deep. So there's pros and cons to both. And I think knowing yourself is key because it allows you then to see how you can build your social capital. And yes, I agree with you that, networking is one of the ways to build your social capital. So that's the difference. Natalia and Stephen. Let me come to Stephen first. Stephen, I'm going to pull a question and ask you because in the interest of time, I want us to make sure that we can, answer as many of the questions as we can. There's a question here. How does one learn to interact freely with others? Right? So how do you learn to interact freely with others? And I'm making some assumptions really on the basis of the question, perhaps for someone where it doesn't come naturally. So how can you learn? What are some of the things we can do? As Stephen answers that one, Natalia, there's another one that's come through I'm going to give to you that was, how do you leverage or ask for help from these networks? So now that you've built the networks, what are some of the do's and don'ts of asking for help? So Stephen, let me come to you first and then we'll come to Natalia.
I think it still speaks to EQ. I guess people with higher emotional intelligence have sort of developed shock absorbers in case they get a no, they're not going to faint the next minute. Because I think part of why people find it hard to interact freely with others is the fear of rejection or the fear of what the other person will think about them. And I guess it comes from a very personal point of view of being so grounded or so confident with yourself to the point that you're ready to receive any answer or any outcome from a conversation. So it's I would still take it back to maybe the dating scenario, like that kind of shoot your shot. If you die, you die. So I think it comes from that level of self-confidence. Yeah, and I think it's building that inner stability should be the key focus, rather than focusing on what the interaction or how the interaction will be, because I guess it comes from a point of deficiency, or you're probably afraid of outcome of a particular conversation. Yeah, well, that's how I view it. Perhaps Well, and Natalie have a different perspective to that.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Natalia, yes, jump right in.
No, I 100% agree. We can create more debate and controversy. I think I would just use different words. And the one thing that I will say is that if you stay in your comfort zone, you are never going to grow.
Mm,
If you stay in your comfort zone, if you do what you have always done, you will get what you have always got. So you have to step outside of your comfort zone.
mm,
I say that the work environment is not necessarily the only place for you to build some of the, you called it deficiency, but I think it's just, it depends whether you are male or female. It depends what age you are. It depends what number child you are. You would be amazed. Girls that are first daughters tend to be any role that is more of a gatekeeper. HR, lawyers, the customer services is very, very interesting in that. And I always say, even when it comes to salary, your salary starts on the value you put yourself onto, not necessarily. So sometimes some of us, especially females, we are hold far more accountable. We have far more due diligence. We self eliminate from jobs, but when we do a really good job in a work environment, we don't tend to blow our trumpet. We are just quietly getting on with it, and that's also a cultural element that I do think. I would say that when I would say that if you are feeling that you are not confident enough, let's say you are an introvert and you want to become more of a speaker, go and do it in different environments. You can do it in church. You can do it, create an afternoon event for your school friends and say, step outside your comfort zone, start doing it. The first time I made a presentation, I was shaking. The second time was third time. So the more times you do it, what scared you the most first will become. And also, if you choose to say, I don't want the boss to think of me, let me be quiet, well, that's the impression you are giving. So when you are managing your brand, whether you are aware of it or not aware of it, conscious of it or not conscious or intentional, people are still going to have it. So, but to answer your question, in terms of LinkedIn, what are the do's and don'ts? First of all, don't just, to me, there are some emails or some messages that are just a turn off.
mm,
Can you find me a job? Can you do this? Like literally, you're just coming in and asking somebody, why would I have to go and do a job for on your behalf? So when you are building your network, please, most human beings like to be complimented, like their ego massaged. Take some time to go through their profile and said, I found this of interest. I am looking to also grow my network. Always send a personalized message for every invitation you send. If you're just going to click send, click send, click send, you are not going to leave a positive impression. When it comes to LinkedIn, what all social media platforms really love is engagement. Don't just like, and share with no purpose.
mm,
Comment. Your comment is far more important. If you see something that you like, put a comment on it. That person will now say, Natalia commented. Every time you comment on that person's post, they get a message. So start building those e-learning relationship. And the most important thing, do not collect no's. You ladies, especially ladies, we're here one no. Oh, maybe we shouldn't. Don't collect no. If one person says no, just move on. Next. It's like the dating. Die or die if they're
mm,
going to do it or not. So don't collect no's. Don't necessarily take your colleagues or people who have nothing to do with your career, their opinion on board. I see people seeking career advice from somebody who's been retired for 20 years. What does that person know what's happening in the trip? 5 years is changing the world of work. So be bold. They're not going to eat you. They are not going to, you will not lose anything but gain. So build your network, send personalized messages, engage in the influencers who is trending, comment on them. Start getting involved, go into groups. LinkedIn is not just a place you plonk your CV. It's a place, remember, you are no longer just Kenyan, you are global. Your location is irrelevant. Build a global profile. Don't just connect with, if you're in finance or if you're in HR, please accept connections. I know you get inundated, but please, when you are approaching a HR person, don't give them a job. Here's my CV, find me a job in your company. That's not what we are paid to do. We're very busy. Do something nice, compliment us. Just say, I'm really interested. Take an innovative approach. Send them a short video. Don't just feel like you've sent the same 200 messages 1,000 times and now your job search is complete. No, it isn't. Build relationships.
Wow. Thank you very much for sharing. What I love about these discussions is somehow we always manage to get panelists who are so passionate about what they are sharing, and you can see it come through. Um, I think that, and Michelle, just to highlight, recently had an event. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, but she had the Lady Anchor's inaugural Elevate Your Mindset and Thrive in Uncertain Times conference. And I think one of the things that Michelle talks about a lot is just mindset. And, thinking and reflecting around what Natalia has just said, and a lot of what Michelle was saying in the run up to the conference, is just reminding yourself that the worst someone can say is no. And if you think about it, when you get a no, you're no worse off than where you were before. And they might actually give you a yes. So if you want to connect with Michelle, I think we shared earlier, but we can share again her LinkedIn profile, because I know those are conversations she's always having around mindset. Then connect with her on LinkedIn, and you can always ask questions. You can always side chat her. There's a question in the comments around solutions by PTS and what we offer as well. So allow me also to share another program that we have that really excites me. And this is a program that we call the EQ Masterclass for Professional Women. So, Stephen, you'll forgive me here. This is something that would not apply for you. It is not discrimination, but we have developed this really exciting group coaching program that runs over 6 weeks, and it's called the EQ Masterclass for Professional Women. If you are a professional woman who wants to leverage the power of self-awareness. We've talked a lot about self-awareness to build confidence, develop executive presence, and achieve your big, hairy, audacious, and career goals. This is the program for you. Over 6 weeks, we dig deep to support you to understand yourself better. I firmly believe that you can only go as far forward towards achieving your goals as you are willing to go inward into yourself. Far too often, we are the ones standing in our own way. And so this program is facilitated by a group of emotional intelligence coaches who really are on a mission to support professional women across Africa to unleash the power of emotional intelligence, to get that promotion, get that pay rise, get that corner office, whatever it is you are aspiring to, without losing sight about what is really important in life. The link is the same that I shared earlier. The same opt-in link gives you a drop down where you can select what it is that you are interested in, and our team will be in touch with you. So I'll share it again in the chat. Feel free to reach out and we will support you if you are interested in this program. If you are a gentleman and you're interested in learning more about emotional intelligence, use the same link to express your interest, and we will reach out and let you know all the different programs that we have. Right, it is 10 minutes to. Oh my goodness, the time has flown by. Thank you so much to my panelists. Let us look and see if there's anything else that we've left out. I do apologize if we end up missing yours. I like this comment here by Stacy. Great conversation. Social capital is something underlooked, but with the online world, our online personalities are also our brands. Thank you also for sharing on stating that a no shouldn't stop you, but keep you moving. One of the things we tell salespeople is your no is one step closer to your next yes. There is a question here that I must, or a comment here that I must share. Stephen, this is, I think, in response to something that you said earlier, this idea of relating it to dating. Susan says, Stephen, this dating scenario needs to be unpacked, kidogo. So perhaps you can just help us. I think you alluded to the fact that as you're networking, you alluded to the fact that it's similar to dating. And I've heard it said before that, meeting someone and giving them your business card and sharing your ask as you first interact is like asking a woman to marry you at the first date. Doesn't make any sense. Stephen, any reflections on this idea that networking is very similar to dating?
Um, I mean, it's a relationship building, and it goes into understanding the other person, getting into sort of almost getting into understanding the emotion level, what makes them happy, what makes them angry, and that's what builds lasting relationships, and that's the basis of social capital. Because if you're to derive value from the person next to you, then you ought to understand them better, and they also ought to understand you better. And for that mutual benefit aspect to come out strongly, then there's an aspect of investment, and that's why I was comparing it to dating. And as you said, you can't just meet someone today and give them your business card and assume, Viola, you got this, right? you you have to follow up with a call. You have to ask for another meeting. You have to ask for some time out. You have to write an email. So it's work, and that's what a lot of people tend to confuse social capital for, because they're always thinking that social capital is, oh, just because I'm popular or I know so many people, then these people will come through for me. And I think a lot way more people, especially politicians, have found themselves in a very tight corner, where they say once they leave office, their phone goes off or no one calls them. It's that scenario where they always think that anyone who is coming to them or anyone around them is part of their social capital, only to realize that they never took time to understand the people around them and to recognize that there's actually the social capital and there are others, or what people like calling acquaintances. So it's such a broad conversation. I wish we had more time. Yeah.
I know, right? I know. These lunch and learns always go so fast. An hour and a half seems like a lot of time, but by the time we have these conversations, the time flies by. I really like what you said about the fact that at the end of the day, building social capital is about building relationships, and this is really what each of the panelists have said. Before I come to you, panelists, just reflect and think through what your parting shot will be as we begin winding up. Thank you very much, Jane. Jane's saying that she's really enjoyed the conversation. Same thing with Doreen, who's really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for joining us. Stephen, great to have you online. Thank you so much for joining us. He says great insights as well. We've been talking about the fact that social capital is critical. It is crucial to your success in your career. As you grow, you will grow as a result of relationships that you have had. And now what's amazing is these are relationships not just in person, but relationships online as well. I think Natalia went into great detail and talked about the fact that even on LinkedIn, it's not just about posting or putting your details and sitting back. You must work the relationships. You must connect with people. You must reach out. And it's the same when we look at social capital or building social capital for ourselves in real life. Another great insight that I think has come through for me from this is the power of social capital for organizations. So if you are a leader, it's not just about building social capital for yourself, but it's creating an environment where individuals can connect and build relationships within the team. All my panelists talk about the impact of those connections within the organization. And I'd like to say that ultimately it does drive the bottom line. So It has been a phenomenal conversation. Don't go anywhere yet. Let's allow our panelists to give their parting shot. Stephen, because you were the last to share the last time, let me allow you to be the first to share your parting shot this time.
Thank you, Mocha. And all I would say is people need to invest time and to some extent resources in building their social capital, and let it not be confined to the familiar spaces. Let us be ready to explore places that we've never been, people we've never met, industries or spaces that we've never thought about, because our minds are elastic, so they ought to be given that chance to experience that. Let's not confine ourselves to familiar spaces.
Wow, I love that. I love the idea of, visualizing your mind as elastic, right? And just not being confining yourself to the familiar. And Natalia talked about this earlier, that, there's no growth that's going to happen in your comfort zone. Natalia, let me come to you. Your parting shot.
Your social capital it's one of the best investments, as the best time you can ever spend on yourself. It will help you grow your career. It will help grow if you're running your own business. It will help. And social capital is not just what can others do for me. Start thinking,
Mm.
what can I do for others? Be strategic, be intentional, be authentic, and be consistent. So that's my parting
I
shot
love it.
there.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I like what you said, that the investment you make will yield a return, and go into building relationships with a mindset that says, what can I give? Not just what can I get. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. I see you've had to dash off to another call. It's been great having you here. Michelle, your parting shot.
Thank you. Yeah, just to reiterate, like social capital is just like financial capital. You have to put money to withdraw from it. So you have to do the investing. You have to invest in yourself. You have to invest in others to be able to get, to get back from it, to get value. You add value to others, you value others, and then you will also be valued. I'd like to end with a quote from Albert Schweitzer. It says, "What we do with our lives individually is not what determines whether we are a success. What determines our success is how we affect the lives of others." And social capital is that fuel that allows us to get there. Thank you.
Oh, wow. What a powerful parting shot. Thank you so much for sharing that, Michelle. I think that was a really awesome quote. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, Natalia. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so, so much, Stephen, for the amazing insights that you have shared. I always, always, always walk away from these sessions with great nuggets for myself as I continue on this journey. So thank you, as always, for being really fabulous panelists. I don't know how we do it. I don't know how the team does it, because the invitations and all the managing of the event is done by the team spearheaded by Anne Joroge and our own Tessie. So I don't know how they do it, but every single time they give me amazing panelists. And somehow the energy between the panelists is always so on point. So thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Guys, if you want to connect, if you feel you have a question that wasn't answered, we have shared Natalia's LinkedIn profile. We have shared Michelle's LinkedIn profile, and we have shared Stephen's LinkedIn profile. Go back and check them out and connect with them, and you'll be able to, direct message them if you have any questions on a follow-up to anything that they have said today. So allow me to release them. Thank you very much for your amazing insights. Thank you. So
Thank you for doing what you are doing. You are phenomenal, Mucho. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much, Natalia.
100%.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. It's really great having you here. So there you have it. We've come to the end of yet another EQ Lunch and Learn. We provided the learning, and you, hopefully, make time to have your lunch. As always, it is phenomenal connecting with you here online. Emotional intelligence is not a nice to have skill. It is an essential skill for your success at work. Do reach out to us. I mentioned our EQ practitioner certification, which is running in the month of September and October. We also have the EQ masterclass for professional women. If you are serious about getting to know yourself, diving beneath the surface to understand what makes you tick so that you can use that information to propel yourself forward, then reach out and we will tell you more about the EQ masterclass. Our opt-in is also for you if you feel, okay, Mucha, I know I need more about this EQ, but I don't know where to get started. Just reach out to us. I'm going to share the link once again. Reach out to us, and we are happy to walk the EQ journey with you and provide whatever support you may need. So, thank you very much for joining us today. We have come to the end of our session. It has been a fabulous conversation. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Remember, we have streamed this straight to our YouTube channel, so you are more than welcome to go and listen again and again. I know I will, because there were some really fabulous insights. Goodbye from me. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.